Hey everyone, my name's Peter Howard at PA Howdy on Twitter. I'm currently writing an article on when running backs tend to break out in the NFL. It's to go along with the article I wrote about when wide receivers tend to break out in the NFL, and you can find it on the first page of the FSstatistics.com website. I did a video portion for that article as well. Where is it? Right here. This is not the video portion for the running back article. This is supplemental, if you like. The reason is because something I wanted to do with the wide receiver article was include how I break down who is a good target based on when wide receivers tend to break out, and based on how I evaluate wide receivers. I didn't get to include much of that apart from descriptions of which wide receivers that are entering their second and third year that I was interested in based on when wide receivers break out. And we've got a lot of good college data that is actually trends somewhat to who is actually going to be successful in the NFL. I favor breakout age, and I also favor overall market share production, which if anyone's read any of my articles on rookies already knows very well. I'm not as confident in running back data as I am as wide receiver data. In the same way that in the NFL we have air yards and racer and other metrics which are good at telling us about wide receiver efficiency, we don't have any good running back efficiency metrics. Now, I've broken down the overall trend of when running backs break out already, but since I don't have go-to things I like as well for running backs, I was searching for some. So I was looking for other potential indicators. I even looked up yards per carry. I calculated yards per touch by calculating touches and total yards and then dividing one by the other using the FF database. And as I did with wide receivers, I looked at when first, second, and third year breakouts, what they tend to do in their first 3 years. There's actually this, I'll save that for the article, but there's this hard and fast rule about when running backs have a window to break out and when they don't. And it's really down to the first 3 years. But I know that both of these, yards per carry and yards per touch, are not trustworthy. For reasons that are probably too long to explain in this video. But essentially you need a running back to play for more years than running backs typically play in the NFL, and then you need him to get more carries than most running backs get in the NFL. You basically need to get 200 carries a year for 10 years before you can really say that yards per carry is stable and trustworthy. We're definitely not getting that in the first 3 years of running back careers when they haven't broken out yet. And despite the tempting pattern of over 4 yards per carry and over 5 yards per touch, I don't want to trust this because I don't trust these two metrics in general. So that's not helpful to me. But one thing I'm going to describe and point out, or I'm planning on doing, for the article, and something I want to draw everyone's attention to anyway, because I've mentioned it before, is actually percentage of runs at yards gained. We need to come up with a better name for that. This is something Michael Zingoni has been working on using NFLsavant.com data, play-by-play data. I actually used his method and came up with a 3-year history of it, but on FS Statistics, what we have is access to 2017. So if you go to data analysis and offensive patterns, and then running back patterns, and then yards per rush, so you've got a submenu and a submenu and a submenu, so it can be a bit trickier to find. Then what you can search is any running back from 2017, and it makes a little graph for you. So one particular situation that showed the what was missing that I wanted to include in my running back article was the Aaron Jones versus Jamal Williams situation. For example, if you pull up just running backs entering 2018 for their second season, so they've only played 1 year so far, right here, and then you look at their rushing attempts and rushing yards, and I've gone ahead and again calculated how stable they are year to year throughout running backs' careers. They tend to see the biggest change through season 1 to season 2. So it's least stable here. And also, if you notice, these numbers are not very particularly stable. 4.4 is bad. Even by NFL standards, and by NFL volume standards at least. So therefore I can tell you that these guys here are more likely to get more carries in Season 2, but because it's the least stable between Season 1 and 2, it's the least trustworthy bump, right? If Joe Mixon's touches stay, or rushing attempts stay stable, it's not a surprise. If Jamal Williams balloons up to 300, also not a surprise, because we're expecting a big change. So despite the fact that running back attempts do predict running back attempts, and volume is the best way of looking at production as well, it's dicey, right? And then that's what got me thinking about efficiency, because even just in these two numbers, you see that Aaron Jones' efficiency, the yards produced versus the opportunity, is just insane compared to all of these guys, actually. Joe Mixon was not near as efficient. And again, when we look at the descriptive but not predictive stat of yards per carry, and badly descriptive, again, I'll point that out, so that Joe Mixon is struggling. But if you look at Joe Mixon's graph, you see some other information, such as the majority of, he was getting a higher percentage of his carries was going for under 2 yards than the league average. But he also has this slight spike over 5 yards, so a higher percentage of his runs were going for 5 yards or more compared to league average. And so there's something funky going on here, and then you can break down the Joe Mixon situation in other ways as well. I think he was suffering from just offensive line problems, to be honest. And we see a similar problem with Aaron Jones. You see that he was highly efficient even on just 81 carries. The majority, a higher percentage of his carries were going for over 5 yards compared to league average. Whereas Jamal Williams, a higher percentage of his carries were going for under 5 yards compared to league average. Now this requires more context. For example, where were they getting those carries? So what was the yards to go? And I've actually calculated success rate at different yards to go to try and account for that for my own process. It's not yet available on the site yet. But this, I think, is a better way of assessing efficiency for running backs in pretty much every other way. Certainly every other way that I know that's not behind a paywall. Evaded tackles per touch, and those kind of metrics are definitely more stable than yards per carry and more interesting. But this is the only way of assessing running back efficiency that I know of that surpasses yards per carry that's not behind, to be fair, a well-deserved paywall. So these graphs are definitely worth checking out. They're a little tricky to get to. They're under 3 different menus, and they do require more investigation, like where was a running back getting these carries, and also how many carries were there. Remember, Aaron Jones' efficiency comes on only an 81 carry sample size, so that kind of sucks. But it does tell us definitely more than other running back efficiency metrics in terms of how well they actually performed. So check them out. I'm going to be referencing them a little bit in my running back breakout article, which is hopefully soon to be written and soon to come out. So I wanted to highlight them now as well. Alright, well, thanks for checking it out. That's my late night rant about running back efficiency, I guess. I will talk to you next time. Thanks.